Please welcome Executive Board Director Adrian Bohannon.
Good morning, Tri-Deltas. Good morning. An early morning. Thank you all for being here, and you all look rested and refreshed and happy, so we're happy to have you. My name is Adrian Bohannon, and I have the pleasure of serving Tri-Delta as an Executive Board Director. We're so thrilled to have you here with us in Arlington for the 2015 Volunteer Leadership Conference. And boy, are you in for a treat this morning. But I'll get to that in a minute. First, I'd like to talk with you a bit about some very important work being done by members of Tri-Delta's Ritual Committee. This weekend, the Ritual Committee is being represented by Gaby Renstrom and Kristi Yerkes. Will you please stand if you're in here? Thank you. Thank you so much for all the work that you both do on this committee. And the Ritual Committee consists of 6 alumni members and 1 collegiate member and is chaired by Kim Dowd. This team has been hard at work over the last several months taking a close look at Tri-Delta's rituals and traditions in an effort to ensure that we are sustaining our sisterhood according to the purpose and the vision of our founders. The Ritual Committee also seeks to ensure that our rituals are being practiced consistently and correctly in our chapters, which has become a challenge in recent years as chapters have grown or don't have a dedicated space in which to conduct ritual or to store their materials. Gaining insight and understanding around this and brainstorming innovative ways to ensure Tri-Delta's time-honored traditions stay intact is at the heart of the Ritual Committee's mission. So now, we'd like to ask for your help this weekend and beyond. Throughout the weekend, we'll be posting a series of questions on a flip chart right outside these doors, and it's our hope that you'll take a moment to share your thoughts in an effort to help shape our work. We're really in the data collection period of our work, and so the more information we can have from you as invested members of our fraternity, the better we will be able to design programming for the future of our organization. It's our hope that you'll take a moment to answer these questions or to seek one of us out, Gaby or Kristi or myself. We will be asking some ritual-oriented questions at today's lunch working session, and thank you in advance for your feedback during that time. Finally, we'll be sending a survey to all of the VLC attendees following this weekend. And again, we thank you in advance for taking the time to share your feedback in that forum. And after you've completed the survey, if you have additional thoughts that you'd like to share with any of us on the Ritual Committee, there will be contact information available, and we would really seek any input from you as we shape our work. And now, without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce my friend Kristi Horner, Chair of Tri-Delta's Leadership Development Committee. Many of you know Kristi and are aware of the amazing work that she and her committee are doing to cultivate and evaluate Tri-Delta's leaders. Kristi's going to share a bit more about that work this morning and the many ways in which the LDC is helping to sustain our sisterhood through succession planning. Please welcome Kristi Horner.
Thank you, Adrian, and thank you, everyone, for this opportunity to share what the LDC is up to. First, I just want to say, wow, Emily Greer, she was fantastic last night. Oh, my gosh. Servant leadership, I mean, what a terrific keynote to get us started for this weekend, but I'll tell you what a hard act to follow. I'm sitting there going, taking all these notes, and I'm sure everyone at my table is like, why are you taking all these notes? And I mean, no, she was so terrific in saying, I don't have to give part of my liver to my sister to be a good servant leader. And no, I don't have to cure cancer personally to be a servant leader. But she gave so many wonderful examples, and what a perfect segue into us now talking about the LDC and the work we're doing right here for Tri-Delta. So thank you for this opportunity. I will say that my takeaway from Emily's talk was indeed that people first, serve first, acknowledge the contributions of others, serve humbly, and have gratitude. I mean, to me, that was the real message for me last night. Servant leaders, leaders who are more concerned about what they can give to others rather than what they're going to get from the organization. Wasn't Sarah Ida Shaw really a servant leader? The glory of life is to give, not to be given. One of my absolutely all-time favorite Sarah Ida Shaw quotes. Do you know your why? The purpose, cause, or belief that inspires you to do what you do? Sarah Ida Shaw likely didn't realize it 126 years ago, yet when she declared, "Let us found a society that shall be kind alike to all and think more of a woman's inner self and character," excuse me, than of her personal appearance, this was her why. It was what set Tri Delta apart from the other 3 women's groups already on the Boston University campus. Tri Delta's purpose, our why, was created and has guided our organization ever since. Sarah Ida Shaw was a strategic visionary. She was innovative. She was inspiring. She was indeed a servant leader. I want to thank Karen and the Executive Board for their invitation and ongoing support of the Leadership Development Committee, or the LDC. We felt VLC was a terrific opportunity to share a little bit more about what the LDC is all about, and you'll see many of us here in attendance today. The work of the LDC is truly a team effort. I stand here as your chair, yet represent the collective work of 10 others and the many LDC members that preceded us. I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce you to the current LDC members with us this weekend. Please stand and wave as I read your name. Dana Beckers, Louisiana Lafayette. Elizabeth DiMartino from Boston. Ellen Jurwitz Rhodes. Jessica Lower, UC Irvine. Linda McClendon, Pittsburgh. Jennifer Pavlek, Cal State Long Beach. Allison Peschel, Milliken. Jane Schmidt from Wisconsin was unable to attend VLC this weekend, but our 2 newly appointed collegiate members are also with us, Stuart Cook from Kentucky and Lindsay Gabler from Oklahoma State. Former LDC members, as well as current board members, are sporting Ask Me About the Leadership Development Committee buttons. Be sure to stop us, and we will be happy to tell you more about the work of the LDC and hear about your own leadership development this weekend. Many of you may remember when Tri Delta had a more traditional nominating committee and slating process for our elected leaders. It was very, excuse me, not enough coffee, I've got some. It was very similar to the model we continue to use in our collegiate chapters. Per the fraternity bylaws, the duties of the LDC include evaluating and cultivating fraternity leaders for service in elected and appointed positions. The LDC works to present a slate of candidates to the Delta 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 National House Corporation and Foundation Board of Trustees. As well, the LDC presents a slate for election to the convention delegates for the Executive Board and the LDC. Now that's a little bit about what we are charged to do. So how do we do this? Well, first, let's look at what does it mean to be a Tri Delta leader. It turns out that defining a leader within the context of our fraternity is really quite an impossible task. We take pride in the diversity of our members' skills, talents, experiences, and personalities. So rather than trying to settle on one common definition, the LDC set to work to create a flexible framework that would help each leader uniquely grow and thrive. That framework is our competency model. Over the last 7 years, the LDC continued to cultivate leaders for service. We recognized we had a terrific problem on our hands. We had an abundance of outstanding women to consider for board service. We realized what we needed was something to help focus our conversations. We had to talk about the strengths and qualities specifically would make for the most effective board members and the most balanced boards. That's how the first discussions of these leadership competencies came about. Most companies use a competency model or something like it to help them manage and grow their people. As this model was created and further refined, we were incredibly blessed to have outstanding talent on the LDC that was able to research a variety of HR tools, resources, and best practices to structure and refine this model. We know it's important for us to be able to support our leaders as they emphasize what they do well and help them to match their strengths to what the fraternity needs. In a nutshell, the reason for the model is to help us to get the right people in the right job to keep the organization moving forward. Many of you may be familiar with the book StrengthsFinder 2.0. There are thousands of books and a whole realm of psychology dedicated to capitalizing on your strengths. Experts say that to create the most effective leaders, we should not focus on what skills they lack. It's not trying to fix what's broken or compensate for any perceived shortcomings. Instead, leaders should identify what they do well and put their efforts into building on those strengths. And that's what will inspire people. We think a capable person who does a job she loves and does it well will be an effective leader. When we set out to identify which strengths specifically were needed in our fraternity leaders, we started, of course, with Tri Delta's purpose. Tri Delta's purpose guides us in all we do. Remember, it was undoubtedly Sarah Ida Shaw's why. We also looked at Tri Delta's core values as identified in our rituals. And think back to last night. What really spoke to you? For me, it was self-reverence, self-knowledge, self-control. We asked ourselves, what common strengths have we noticed in past leaders who brought the fraternity to where it is today? What strengths do we want to cultivate in the next generation of leaders so that future Tri Deltas have even more opportunities than we've had? Identifying these leadership strengths, or in more technical terms, leadership competencies, is where we headed next. After reviewing what I like to call the big book of competencies, I don't really think that exists, but we identified 9 for each leadership role: board competencies, board president competencies, and leadership development competencies. So here's where we are, Tri Delta's leadership competencies. As you skim these words, we hope that some start to jump out at you. You can probably read down the list and determine relatively quickly what you feel you do well and where you have opportunities to grow. None of us have the exact same combination of strengths, and there's room in Tri Delta for leaders with all different talents and abilities. In no way do we expect women to possess them all. It's really just not humanly possible. However, we're certain that as you see this list, you'll spot a few that you really feel are your unique strengths. And that's what is exactly what Tri Delta needs: people who can lead from a place of confidence and competence. We want our women, and for some boards, men, to be able to do what they love and feel they do it well. Our aim with this set of competencies is to lend structure, consistency, transparency, and credibility to the LDC's ongoing leadership development efforts. This model gives us a framework for our existing board members' ongoing development and training. It gives us a way to strategically cultivate leaders over time, and it helps us to identify strengths and gaps in our candidate pool, and make sure the composition of our boards is more balanced. It helps us make strategic decisions about who is well suited to lead our organization going forward. And it anchors all that the LDC's work in our purpose, values, and strategic initiatives of the fraternity. While the competencies you see here are all valuable and important, some are more pertinent if you're board members versus a board president versus a member of the LDC. Different roles may require leaders to show different strengths at different points in time. While board members should have relevant experience and skills for their positions, for example, the NHC board candidates ideally might have some kind of housing or student life background, the board competencies speak more to the leadership behaviors consistently required for board service. In a nutshell, the competencies speak to what it means to be a board member in Tri Delta, while a candidate's unique skills and experiences help determine where she is best suited to lead. Here you see 9 particular strengths or skills that we've determined as the most important ones for board service. There are plenty of examples of current board members who exemplify board competency strengths. Executive Board Director, for instance, Allison Griffin, in her role as Senior Vice President for External and Government Relations for USA Funds, utilizes strategic visioning every single day for her firm and her clients. Executive Board Director Kimberly Sullivan, physical therapist, demonstrates results orientation as she runs her own successful physical therapy practice. Regardless of the board she sits on, a board president assumes a different role than her directors. She guides, mediates, facilitates, delegates. So her competencies should reflect her unique role. These competencies are especially important for structuring development discussions, since on any given board, we want to ensure we have multiple directors who are viable candidates to assume the presidency, if that is needed. These competencies also support the LDC when it comes time for us to slate a new president for any of TriDelta's boards. An example of a board president competency strength would be Sarah Lindsay, past fraternity president, who utilizes ambassadorship and diplomacy in her current role as TriDelta's NPC delegate. And finally, while it's not a governing board, we recognize that the need to have a special set of competencies for the Leadership Development Committee. You'll notice 5 of the 9 board competencies are also LDC competencies. Both groups are leaders in the organization, and some LDC members could be considered candidates for future board roles. A key difference for the LDC, however, is our special focus on building relationships and credibility within the organization. We need to develop a broad network of candidates and create confidence that we are making decisions in the best interest of the fraternity. The competencies for this group reflect our unique charge. It just so happens that 2 of our current executive board directors are former LDC members. Nicole Hughes demonstrates stakeholder management in her role as content analytics solution for IBM, as she works with a variety of clients and stakeholders. Adrienne Bohannon utilizes integrity and ethics when she protects the confidentiality of her young clients as a speech-language pathologist at Collaborating for Kids. Much of what we do, we like to refer to as a Jenga game, a balancing act of talent, competency strengths, and opportunities for growth. Our leadership competency model is truly meant to be a leadership development framework, so we can recognize what our leaders do well. What it's not meant to be is a formula or a guarantee for moving into a leadership role. It's important to note that being slated to a board or the LDC is a balance of strengths and skills, different experiences that leaders may have, what positions are open at any given time, how board members might complement each other and work together, what the fraternity currently needs in its leadership. The reality is how a board comes together is much more of an art than a science. As part of our cultivation efforts, we created some supporting tools that can bring the competencies to life. We put these tools together with the question in mind of how they can be helpful, not only to our leaders and volunteers, but also helpful to the LDC in its work. The Leadership Development Workbook was created to support individual TriDelta leaders as they identify their strengths and opportunities for growth as a leader. This tool includes a strengths self-assessment utilizing TriDelta's leadership competencies as a framework. Once you've determined where you are, the next step is to determine where you want to go or how you want to grow. That's where the personal growth plan comes in. After you complete a competency self-assessment, then you pick 3 strengths to focus on. 1 is a strength to learn, something you may not know much about today as you might like, and recognize that gaining more knowledge and experience in that particular area will make you a stronger leader. 1 is a strength you want to grow, something you already do well or have some experience with. But again, further developing that competency will add to your strength as a leader. And finally, 1 is a strength you want to master. This is your signature strength and something you know you already do particularly well. In an effort to bring TriDelta's leadership competencies to life, I asked our current board presidents to share an example of when they had used a particular competency strength in the last few weeks. Phyllis Grissom, fraternity president, shared that on and off over the past 2 to 3 weeks, she has been working with other national presidents on a specific campus issue. In both cases, she's had to rely on stakeholder management to ensure that the concerns of local TriDelta members, fraternity staff and volunteers, university staff and NPC personnel are considered and addressed. The perspectives of these groups are often different, even though we share some of the same goals and values. It has been important to understand those different perspectives, listen to opinions, and keep stakeholders informed along each step of the process. Further, in her role as fraternity president, Phyllis has developed a network of TriDelta personnel and national president friends that she can rely on to help her navigate this situation. So networking has also been an important competency during that time. Ginger Smith, Foundation Board of Trustees president, shared that she has used communication as a competency strength when presenting 2 motions and related background information to the Foundation Board of Trustees in an executive session meeting by conference call where both motions passed unanimously. Follow-up to these 2 important votes called for both communication and diplomacy in executing the identified next steps through connections with a variety of stakeholders. Ginger also shared a time when she used communication in her role as Director of Campus and Community Relations for Library and Information Technology Services at Emory University in presenting the final report, data, and recommendations from a 6-month study project to the library cabinet, where the recommendations were approved unanimously. June Hilton, National House Corporation Board President, provided an example where she used developing others in her role as Assistant Principal for Curriculum and Instruction at Claremont High School in California. While it's often simpler to try to do things herself, she notes that it does not give others the chance to grow and develop into leaders. Just last week, when she met with a newly elected department chair regarding how best to lead a meeting regarding teaching assignments, she first asked, instead, what ideas did he have? He thought that he might first have his colleagues provide a list of their top 3 choices and develop a teaching grid to include at least 2 of these choices. While June recognized that his idea might be difficult to accomplish, she asked what things he might need to keep in mind. And he listed a few, whatever method he decided. Although it did not go quite as smoothly as planned, they met afterwards to debrief, and June asked the department chair to share what he thought went well and not well, and how he might go about this differently in the future. He had some great ideas. And again, while it would have been less time-consuming to tell him what he might or might not work, he had the ability to make decisions and reflect on them, knowing he had support in the process. An associate dean for external relations at Texas Tech University School of Law, Julie Doss, Center for Living, Learning, and Leading board president, shared that stakeholder management is always front of mind. As she planned the alumni reception and award ceremony in connection with the State Bar of Texas annual meeting in San Antonio later this month, it was important to balance the needs of all stakeholders. Many other competencies are evidenced by examples that she shared, including inspiring and motivating others, planning and organizing, networking, and collaboration. One example Julie shared was securing a law firm to sponsor the event. She needed to make certain they were happy with what they are getting in exchange for their financial contribution. Do they have the signage that they want displayed in addition to the signage that the law school will provide? Would they like to have one of their partners give a brief opening remarks? To whom would the firm like electronic and/or hard copy invitations sent? I'm sure you noticed that our current board presidents, as well as directors, possess different competency strengths. We were able to diversify TriDelta's boards by working with them to identify their competency strengths and opportunities for growth versus assessing their personalities, love for TriDelta, years for service, roles served, or interests. Just like the game of Jenga, TriDelta's competency model allows us to carefully place all of the pieces together in the right places as we continue to look strategically towards TriDelta's future. And thanks to all of you, the future looks bright. So how can you help the LDC? While TriDelta's collegiate election philosophy of the office seeks the woman is still critical to the collegiate officer slating process, for the Leadership Development Committee is it essential that we rely on self-referrals as well as referrals of others to reach as many potential leaders as possible. With TriDelta's growing number of alumni members and just 10 members of the LDC, it would be near impossible for us to network effectively with each and every alumna member. It is our goal to help each TriDelta alumna member that we cultivate to be able to determine and articulate her individual strengths and find a way to be able to put them to work for the benefit of TriDelta. The LDC is honored to help our members explore their natural gifts and talents, as well as opportunities to develop other strengths: self-reverence, self-knowledge, self-control. The Leadership Development Committee welcomes you to visit us at our table right out here in the marketplace to network with current and prior LDC members in attendance at VLC, to pick up our bookmark with suggested summer reading books to add to your list, to drop off your leadership referral form, which you each received this morning at your place, consider making a self-referral, or refer a friend for future cultivation of the LDC. For everyone who returns a referral during VLC, you'll be entered to win a selection of the books from our summer reading list. Attend the Identify Your Leadership Strengths workshop this afternoon to discover your unique leadership strengths. We look forward to continuing to partner with all of our boards and many of you to assist our members in every possible way and to develop qualities of unselfish leadership among our members. On behalf of the entire Leadership Development Committee, we would first like to thank you for continuing to share your time and talents with TriDelta. Each one of you are an integral part to TriDelta's future. Each of you are a valued servant leader. Thank you for your steadfast loyalty to TriDelta and our purpose, values, and goals. Your legacy may not be known for years beyond your terms on your respective boards, in your current roles, and for that, we are immensely grateful.
Good morning, ladies, Dave, Jason, tech guys. Kristi, thank you. That was awesome. Many of you know that I come to TriDelta from a couple of different nonprofit organizations that you all know, including St. Jude and Susan G. Komen. And I will tell you, those are organizations that are served well by volunteers. Emily talked about those last night. But in neither one of those organizations have I ever seen anything as sophisticated as TriDelta's leadership competency model. I mean, we're not playing, right? This is awesome. And the work that the LDC does, I mean, talk about a tireless bunch, right? And they do this to help sustain our sisterhood, to help ensure the future of TriDelta and make sure our founder's vision, is realized for another 127 years and longer. So thank you for taking time to explain the work of the LDC, which is kind of mystifying. Everybody's wondering there's LDC floating around, right? Get to know them, share your strengths, right? And get to know the work that they're doing, because they are doing work that will sustain our sisterhood over time. So thank you, and attend the workshop if you can this afternoon. My job this morning, I have a couple of jobs. One is, while we're talking about leadership, I thought it might be nice to introduce you to the executive leadership team at TriDelta. We have spent the last year sort of realigning our operations at executive office in an effort to better serve our volunteers and our members. And we have put together a team that I am so so proud of. And I'm not sure I'm going to have them in the same room for the rest of the weekend, honestly, right? These are hardworking people. So I thought I would just take a moment to tell you that this is just an amazing team. I'm so honored to work with. That it's funny, when they stand up, together we have over 85 years of experience, okay? And for-profit, nonprofit organizations, and we have come together in a way that is really just fun. We enjoy each other's companies. We are all over the DISC profile map, which is good, so there's good balance, right? We got a D, we got a couple I's, we've got a C. But if you will, help me, because I realized I was telling all these stories about Dave last night, and people in the audience are probably going, who's Dave, right? We have a guy. Who is he? So Dave Harlan, if you'll stand, please. So Dave is our Senior Vice President of Operations and Housing. He's also known as Delta Dude Dave. He's not loving that name. It just came out of my mouth at CLC, and it was fun at the time, but it stuck, you know. He's not all too happy with me. So Dave's been with us since last September. He comes to us most recently from Lowe's Home Improvement, where he ran the West, all of the West, right? How many stores there was and how many people. Extensive experience in retail and customer service. And our customers, of course, at EO are all of you, our volunteers and our members. So Dave brings great experience to us, and we're thrilled to have him. And it's a guy. We got a guy at Executive Office, right? Jason's got company. Holly Thompson is our Vice President of Marketing, Communications, and Extension. Holly is an amazing asset to us. She is a Panhellenic sister, Alpha Chi Omega, brings tremendous experience in marketing, communications, and education, too. So we are so blessed to have her. You'll often find her quietly standing in the back, running the show, right? But don't mistake her. She is our D. She's our dominant. So don't be confused by that sweet smile. Got it going on. And then the newest member of our executive leadership team is Stephen Strickland. Rockstar. Stephen comes to us most recently from St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. She has experience from JDRF and Susan G. Komen. So yes, if you heard in there St. Jude and Komen, yes, this will be our third dance together, our third time. But you know, when you find somebody amazing that complements your leadership strengths and fills in your gaps, that's your girl. Right? And you want to work with that person again. She is also a Panhellenic sister, so we have great balance on our leadership team. She is a Kappa Alpha Theta, former leadership development consultant for them, and has made the transition to Tri Delta with just ease. You know, the vernacular, I mean, she's in. So Stephan serves as our Vice President of Chapter Development. She oversees chapter services primarily, part of our volunteer services ranks, and some of our membership services. So she's got a big job, just recently relocated back to the Dallas area with her family, and we are thrilled to have her. So that is your executive leadership team at Tri Delta, and we are thrilled to serve you all. Really honored and looking forward to doing great things with support of our boards and our leadership development committee.